Hi, welcome back to TRUESIGHT episode 6. We're joined today by
Oh, this was.
yeah.
Can we do that again?
All right.
Well, you didn't tell me I was gonna.
Well, that's what that answer for. Hi, welcome back to TRUESIGHT episode
You're
6.
supposed to introduce me. You're the interviewer.
But I want you to say your own name.
When does the interviewer have to introduce himself?
I'm different.
That's your job.
I'm different. Welcome back to TRUESIGHT episode 6. I'm joined here today by Pobelter. We're going to be talking about your early career. So you reached Challenger at a very young age, and you kind of were in the whole amateur scene, but you were too young to play LCS, and your first actual opportunity was Evil Geniuses. So kind of speak to me how that experience was convincing your Asian parents to let you play League of Legends professionally, which is the equivalent of I want to go homeless and sell drugs.
Yeah. So at the time I was, I think, 17, I want to say. Yeah, that was the minimum age to play in the LCS. And at the time I was already playing LCS on the weekends. I would play hooky on Fridays sometimes and go play LCS on the weekend because I think the competition was not as rigorous back then. Now it's clearly a given assumption that you have to commit your whole life towards it, scrim, and practice pretty much every waking hour of the day. But back then, it was a little bit more chill, and it came to the point where I was graduating senior year of high school and, applying to colleges, all that sort of stuff. Wasn't sure if I wanted to play LCS or just go to school. And I didn't really get into any colleges I wanted to go to.
That's unlucky.
Yeah, probably too much playing League, not enough studying and getting good grades. But yeah, I didn't get into anywhere that I really wanted to go to. So I was like, you know what? I'll take a gap year. Plenty of people do it. And I'll pursue this opportunity that I have to play in LCS. Actually, funny story. The CEO at the time, Alex Garfield, randomly added me on Skype and was like, "Hello, I am CEO of Evil Geniuses, Alex Garfield. Do you want to play for my team?" And it just seemed like the biggest scam ever. I was like, okay, are you serious? How do I know you're actually who you're saying or not? Because he was added me on a secret account, no profile photo type deal. But anyway, that's how it happened. I got cold added on Skype.
Wait, and your owner's name was Garfield?
Alex Garfield.
That's kind of fucking sick, I can't lie.
Yeah, he's an OG.
So you mentioned that you didn't end up getting into any of your dream colleges. So was it due to bad grades, or did you just set your expectations too high, would you say?
Maybe a mix of both. I mean, I had really good test scores. My GPA was fine. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think weighted I had a 4.3 GPA.
Damn.
Which was, but I went to a really competitive, sweaty high school. So that was top 20%. Yeah, I was not even top 10% at my school. So yeah, I was hoping my test scores would carry me. They didn't. I didn't get in anywhere that I wanted to go to. So yeah, I just decided to try playing LCS.
So how did your parents react when you proposed that? Because I'm sure most parents would be like, hell no.
I think they were iffy at first, and then they were okay with the idea, given that it would only be a year and that I would go back to school after.
You most definitely did not. You most definitely did not go back to school, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think my dad is pretty stoked for me. I think my mom is kind of still wants me to go back to school and go be a doctor, an engineer, or something like that. But I don't know. I think that ship has kind of sailed.
Would you ever consider just going back just to get it, or no?
Maybe if I become so wildly successful and rich that I don't have to work anymore, then I could go back for fun, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a pipe dream.
So we're gonna be talking about beginning of an era. So you were on CLG. The roster was pretty stacked. It had some legends like Zion Spartan, then Darshan, and Zion Spartan again. You also had Smithy Aframu. You were the mid laner along with Doublelift in the AD carry position. And this is where you won your first title. So, because when you were on EG and later Winter Fox, it was always this relegation and surviving relegations. That's kind of what you were kind of known for. But you won your first title on CLG. Was this moment a "this is my future" kind of moment, or?
I think it felt really rewarding. Yeah. So to give context to that win, every split before that, I had placed pretty bottom with my team, and I think we played in relegations every single split.
Yeah.
Pretty much until we did get relegated. Actually, I got relegated the split before by Alex Ich.
Damn, that is an old ass name.
Yeah. I got relegated 3-0, I think, by Alex Ich on Winter Fox. It was pretty brutal, and at the time, so my mom really wanted me to go back to school at that point. She was like, okay, you gave it a try, it didn't work out. But I think my confidence was still super high at the time, and I felt like there was still more I could achieve. So I was like, no, just trust me. You know, I'm gonna keep trying, or like I want to keep trying. So to end up on CLG the very next split after, and then we ended up winning the split, I think was very validating that I was like doing the right thing and that the effort and time and sacrifice that I made was paying off.
Yeah, and I was watching one of the interviews you and Doublelift did together post winning that series, and Doublelift talked a lot about how people kind of writ him off, called him washed, and for him it was a moment of like a fuck you, I'm still good, and then for you it was like you said, you were so used to like the relegation experience, and you finally won. So at this moment, what was like your thoughts going into the future? Because I mean, to foreshadow, you ended up not being on CLG the next split. Like, what was your mindset when you won that? Did you ever think like I could be like a really good player, or was this like a, as you mentioned, like living in the moment kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean that sort of set the tone that like I could keep setting my sights higher. Like, oh, I was capable of winning LCS, so I can do it again. And then that was the first year that I played at Worlds. I think we went like 3-3 in groups and we didn't get out. So that just kind of like set the hunger in me that I wanted to keep playing, win again, go to Worlds again, and try again.
Now we're talking about. So when I was on your Leaguepedia, I noticed that if you direct your eyes to the screen, the first line said you are known for your Zilean and Jax, and I feel like there's almost like a double entendre there. But why were you known for your Zilean and Jax back in the day?
That was just like season 1 Go for Lol meta. You know about the Go for Lol?
No, I'm not that old.
Go for Lol was like the pinnacle of competition back then, like before LCS, before there was even IEM and MLG. Everyone would play in these weekly tournaments for like $100 worth of riot points. Like all the top players. Think about all the OG players like TSM with like Reginald and Dyrus and Chaos, and then CLG with like Hotshot and Saint Vicious and like Chowster. Everyone was just like sweating at these weekly online tournaments, playing all day long for like $20 of RP. And that was just the meta back then. Like Zilean was super strong, Jax was strong. At the time, like lanes were still super fluid. It wasn't AD carry plus support meta in bot lane yet. So you just kind of play whatever you wanted in whatever lane, like whatever you knew how to play. And yeah, I was like, oh, we need Zilean is strong, Jax is strong. We need like a guy who will learn how to play these picks. So I just learned how to play it.
Next, we're going to be talking about an interview you did in 2015. You stated that League of Legends, in your opinion, was a Dota ripoff. And I mean, fast forward, I mean, what is that, nine years ago? League of Legends is your career. Do you still feel like it's a Dota ripoff?
I think at the start, well, that was how it was billed at the start. And why I was intrigued by it in the first place was that it was billed as a game that was similar to or a clone of Dota, and that it was going to be free and it was going to be based in North America. Because at the time, I liked to play Dota, but my parents didn't want to buy me Warcraft 3. So the way I played Dota was I pirated Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne expansion, and I like logged on to a bootleg European client server, and I would just play with like dudes from Turkey and like Egypt and Brazil with like 300 ping, and it just like sucked lagging that hard, and like everyone's typing and I can't understand. So yeah, I mean, clearly they're very different games. But when I was a kid, 14, 15 years old, that's why I was intrigued by it.
For legal reasons, he didn't actually pirate. It's just a joke in game. He did not actually pirate the games.
I mean, no, like I literally downloaded them illegally off the piratebay.org. Like,
are you allowed to like confess to that? Are you getting in trouble for that?
I was like 15. What are they gonna do? Make me buy Warcraft 3?
What was it? Was it like $60, $30? Do you know how much it cost?
I think it was like $30.
And your parents, like, were you like scared of approaching your parents to ask for $30, or like what was like the scenario there?
They like did not appreciate how much time I spent playing video games. So they didn't want to buy me video games or enable that. They wanted me to study.
Fair enough. This was also in 2015. Zed play of yours.
Oh, look at how slow that W used to be.
I know. I mean, you're on like 63 ping, but.
Shut down.
It's pretty mid. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, there's not a single expression on your face. Also, like control ward has 5 health bars. That is
Alright,
like
we
that is
Gucci.
scary. So, I mean, it feel like we talked about Jax and Zilean, and then we talked about. I mean, this is a Z clip, and then at one point you were known for Victor. So, like, which champion did you like the most? Like early on,
I think I just always liked playing whatever was strong. I didn't.
you never consider yourself like tied to a specific style or champion.
Not really. I just always chased whatever I felt was like strong, or like maybe not even what was meta, but whatever I thought was strong. Yeah, I mean Zed was a pretty good pick for me back in the day. There was like a best Zed NA tournament that I won, but that was like a decade ago, man.
How much did you win? Like, what'd you win?
What did I win?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a tournament, I'm assuming you won something.
I think they gave me a jersey that said best Zed NA on it. This
You
was
still
a
have it?
Zubu TV, which I believe got shut down due to money laundering.
I think I remember this. I was watching a video on this pretty recently.
Yeah.
Do you still have the jersey or no?
I think it's at my parents' place. Yeah, back home.
That's like a relic. That is like an actual fossil. So now we're gonna talk about your first trophy. We already talked about it a little bit earlier, but after you won, like you said, it was kind of this is when you decided to take it to a higher level. So what was your mindset approaching, I guess, the off season after that? Because if we can go to the next slide after that, you ended up getting booted, even though you won the split, and replaced by Huhi. But then you joined Immortals. So when you got kicked, what was your initial reaction?
I was like pretty confused as to why that happened because we were so dominant that year. I mean, we didn't drop a single game in playoffs, and out of all the NA teams that went to Worlds, I think we had the best showing. And yeah, I mean, I was just surprised because I really liked all my teammates, and I thought we were gonna run it back. But shit happens. This offer from Immortals came along. Oh, and at the time too, I was on like a very low contract, I would say, and Immortals came in flush with like VC money.
Ooh.
And so they're like, "Hey, we're gonna pay you this amount of money." I was like, "You're gonna pay me how much?"
It was like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I get to play with Huni and Rainover, who just had an extremely successful year on Fnatic and EU, and they seemed like amazing players. So yeah, I mean that was just very enticing. I was like upset for a little that it didn't work out with CLG, but quickly I just like started to look towards the future again.
Yeah, so I mean, there was a little bit of controversy, not only with Doublelift, obviously, like him joining TSM, that was a whole debacle, and then one of your coaches, I believe, I forgot what exactly he got exposed for doing, but it was like he did something, right?
Yeah, I don't even really know what it was either, so I don't want to.
It was like very, very confusing,
Yeah.
but it was a whole different controversy. If we can go to the next slide, like you mentioned, you joined Immortals, and this was a roster with Huni, Rainover, yourself, Wildturtle, and this was I believe probably one of the most dominant rosters of all time, at least in like recent memory. So was this something you always believed you were capable of, or did it come as a surprise when you guys ended up going 17-1?
I mean, yeah, it was just like I don't know how to describe it other than it was like it just felt way too easy. Like we were just better than everyone, and we knew we were better than everyone. And of course, it came to bite us in the ass come playoffs because that was the first time we got challenged and we didn't know how to adapt. Like the other teams had finally like leveled up, and we were just so strong throughout the split, but we stayed at a relatively same level while other teams started at a much lower point, but finally improved to catch us and overtake us. But that was just like the vibe was like, oh my god, we're like so good, and it just feels so easy. Everything clicks so well.
Yeah, and I mean that team had a lot of, I guess, legends or very recognizable players. I think obviously Wildturtle is one of the NA greats, and then both Huni and Rainover were pretty good for years, and Rainover right now is even coaching TL. So do you still keep in contact with any of them, or is it just kind of like you're in your own lane doing your own thing?
I don't keep super close touch with anyone. I mean, I still see Turtle from time to time. Huni I saw when I was in South Korea for Worlds last year. I saw Rain over there as well, but I guess like maybe it's kind of sad because when you play together, you're super tight. You're like hanging out every day, always making jokes, and you feel really close. But I don't know when off season hits and then you just have new teammates, it feels hard to maintain those ties, and it just kind of fades over time.
Yeah, because I believe it was Spica in a recent interview. I mean, I interviewed him at home, and he said this, where it just feels a lot better to play in teams that the players are friends. And I feel like over the past few years, the LCS has kind of trended more towards like a corporate structure where it's like I show up, play scrims, and go home. So, how important do you think it is to be close with your teammates, and how does that like affect the success on stage?
Um, I think like mood and mentality is extremely important when it comes to playing well in League of Legends because it's a very stressful game, where one small mistake can really ruin things. Like it can ruin the entire game, which might ruin the entire season. So, I mean, things are very tense. Things are very high pressure all the time, and it feels good to be able to have some like lighthearted moments or like dudes that you can trust. Um, so I think that is a bit underrated. I mean, honestly, if you just strictly gameplay wise click and you're winning, that stuff doesn't really matter. But when you start to encounter difficulties, which I suppose at some point you will, no matter what team or player you are, that can help kind of get you through tumultuous periods.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like some of the most successful teams in the world, the one that comes to mind immediately is Gen G. They all seem to be on pretty good rapport, and then when you watch like the teams that are struggling, it kind of feels like they don't really trust each other. So I feel like you said earlier, mood and stuff is like really important because if you don't have like trust, I feel like it reflects in like the decisions you make in game when it comes to like objectives or team fighting and stuff. So I I kind of wish that people cared more about like the whole community because I feel like that's also when like League was at its peak when like Doublelift and Bjergsen were streaming side by side in the TSM house. Like moments like those, I think are very forgotten, and I wish we kind of had those still. Now, are we talking about the start of a dynasty? So you were happy on the previous side, and now you are pretty upset. If you look at your face on the right, so why were you so upset when you joined TL?
uh, I was not. I was stoked playing on Team
I
Liquid. I
mean, your
mean,
face doesn't suggest that.
we won back to back. It was a great year. Yeah.
I don't know who the fuck that is. I guess it's a fan. You've played with pretty legendary players on the previous roster, but I mean, I think both Impact and Doublelift alone are in like the GOAT conversation for NA, and then obviously Oleg Smithy, very respectable players. So for like, I think it's like honestly a super team. Would you agree with the statement? Like, would you say it was a super team?
Jeez, I guess so. At the time, yeah, we
Yeah.
were kicking ass. I mean, we were super dominant.
And this was like around the time when franchising happened. So what put you guys so far ahead of the competition? Because you guys won, I feel like, pretty comfortably.
Yeah. I think we just had really good defined roles in the game. We all knew how to win, and we were pretty aligned in that way. I don't know. I feel like the times I was on really strong teams like that, it just felt easy because I just had to do what I know I had to do, and I could trust everyone else to do what they had to do. And I mean, it's just free at that point. Like I just play a normal game of League, and it's just like the outcome is like we're probably gonna win because we're just better.
Yeah, and you previously played with Doublelift. So what was it like kind of joining forces with him again? Because you guys played on CLG back for like I think the 5 or 6 months you were on that team. So what was it like meeting him again?
It was good. I mean, we had not played together for I think a couple years in between Team Liquid and then our stint at CLG. So I feel like we had both developed as players in that time, and it was fun to like meet back up and bounce off ideas against each other. He was always someone I could put a lot of trust in game into. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts on Impact? Because I mean, fast forward, this picture is 2018, but Impact has been playing since I was in diapers, not literally but figuratively. So, what do you think makes Impact so good? Like, how is he so consistent? Because I mean, I'm sure as a teammate you have more of an inside look on his like day to day.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't realize how good Impact was until I played with him. When I played against him prior to that, I felt like he's good, but I didn't really feel like he was an insane player. But after playing with him, I think he's very intelligent about macro. I think he's very passionate about the game. He would always be talking about the game. He would always be like, "What do you think about this?" Or like just always have fresh ideas about the game, unique ideas. And I don't know what else to say besides that. He just has a really good mind for the game, really good higher level thinking, which I think is extremely difficult to find in players these days. And it's not really something you can teach either. It's just someone who has really strong macro sense and higher level thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, he came to NA in 2014, 2015 after he won Worlds with SKT, and he's been here since. So would you say he took on a leadership role almost? Because I feel like players like him and Cordy J have always been kind of these like rocks for the teams they play for. So would you consider Impact a leader?
I'm not sure about now. I can only speak as to the time that we played together. I think when we played together, it was pretty equal voices on the team. I wouldn't really say we had a strong leader. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you also have like Xmithy, who's like a very vocal player, and then Doublelift is known to kind of ask for what it is he wants. So, how did your team approach playing around Doublelift? Who's, I mean, he's known as like a very resource intensive carry. So,
Uh-huh.
what was it like playing mid for Doublelift, specifically on this rendition when like I would argue this is like around his like peak. So, what was it like playing for him back then?
It was just really easy. We always had the set play like, oh, we can push out mid, and if I go bot, we're probably gonna kill them bot, and if we kill them bot, we're probably gonna win the game. So that was just like a really easy set play that we had. Um, I could always count on him to be doing super well in lane, do well in team fights, not throw the game, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, it was just easy to play together.
Now we're talking about time to fly. So, you joined FlyQuest. You were there for about a year, and you guys finished fourth in spring, fourth in the playoffs, and then fourth in the regional finals. So you guys kind of had like a knack for finishing fourth, which honestly isn't terrible, I guess. But after you left TL, because like you said, you won back to back, and now here you are in 2019, only the year after, and you're on FlyQuest. What were your expectations playing with players like Viper, Santorin, Turtle, and JayJ?
I felt like it was not going to be as smooth as playing on Team Liquid, of course. I mean, Team Liquid, we had a lot of seasoned vets. And I guess my mentality at the time was, I played on Team Liquid. We won back to back extremely easily, I would say. Like, I don't even know if we dropped, I think we dropped like a game in playoffs throughout both of those playoff series. So we were legit like 18-1 in playoffs. And then I had kind of felt like, despite that, I didn't know if we had the ceiling to um, contend for making a deep run at an international tournament. I mean, MSI, our team really collapsed, and also at Worlds, like the team vibes were super bad. And so I felt like, well, I can run it back. Maybe we should run it back, but I didn't have a strong belief that if we run it back, we would improve at these international events. So I was like, okay, let's just try like a crazy risk sort of thing. Um, and that was joining FlyQuest at the time and playing with Viper, who was always really good in solo queue, playing with Santorin, who I felt was underrated, and then, reuniting with Turtle as AD. And we had done pretty well on Immortals together, so I was pretty strong on him. JayJ I didn't really know too well, but my personal confidence was at like an all-time high. I was like, great, I can just like teach everyone how to play the game, and then like, maybe if I can do that, like, it might be a team that brings like a fresh sort of approach to the game within our region. Because I think this was also at the time that in EU, where it was like kind of perks and caps were creating these rosters and like warping the roster around them and elevating their teammates to a high level. And I wanted to challenge myself to do that. And honestly, I didn't succeed at that. I have a lot of regrets about that year. I felt like I was not really as good of a leader as I had to be. I was just, yeah, I didn't succeed at that. And yeah, we just kind of had mid results.
So when you say you had regrets, what exactly do you regret from the FlyQuest days?
I think I should have given a lot better feedback and taken a more focused approach. Like, I didn't know it at the time, but I think the sort of thing I had to do was just like actually just play less solo queue. I was always a player that grinded a lot of solo queue. I would always love to try and hit rank 1 and things like that. But I think I had to do a super different approach because we were so mismatched in the ways that we viewed the game and in terms of game knowledge. So if I could do it again, I would just play way less solo queue and watch way more footage and play together and talk about the game together. Like, I think I needed to act in the way that sort of Impact acted as I knew him, where he was just always talking about the game, bringing up fresh ideas, aligning everyone with thoughts on the game. And yeah, I guess I as a person, I'm like kind of insular. I like keep to myself a lot. when I get frustrated, I'll just like kind of keep it inside and not really know how to talk about it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of regrets about that time, but it's in the past now.
So would you say like your biggest regret is just straight up not being like more vocal on the things out of game as opposed to in game?
Yeah, I would say I regret not being able to align the team better together.
Yeah. So I mean, a couple slides ago, you mentioned how Immortals kind of threw like the VC money at you, and you're a player who was there before the LCS was the LCS. You were there for franchising, and now, I mean, you're still pretty involved in seeing you co-stream LCS. So what are your thoughts on like franchising, and do you think it was a good decision or a bad decision, or how much you want to say? Like, I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
force you to, but as much as you're comfortable saying.
Yeah, so I've been through the version of top level North American esports where the top prize was a $100 RP gift card. I've been through the peak of VC where players were on average making hundreds of thousands a year, like even the worst, shittiest players you can think of. And now we're here at present day where it kind of has busted. All that VC money is dried up, and from what I hear, there's like extremely strong players who are pretty much making minimum. So definitely a far cry from the days of like 2018, 19, where teams were just throwing literal sacks of money at decent players. Was franchising worth it? I would say if you were a player who played during that time period and were able to play for a certain number of years, you might feel like it was worth it. In terms of the health and longevity of the scene, I feel that it did not really help that much. I feel like relegations was kind of an important part to keeping the scene interesting. It's not the only reason. I mean, I think the major reason there was ever a drop off was just natural decay of interest of League of Legends in North America. But I mean, back to the point, did franchising help or not? I think it helped the players who were able to play during that time. I think it certainly helped the organizations and executives of those organizations, because with franchising came stability that said, we're going to play in LCS this year and we're going to be here the next year and the year after that. So some orgs were able to secure pretty lucrative sponsorships as a result, not all. But I do feel like there has been a feeling of staleness that has sort of pervaded, and sometimes you just see a team in LCS that kind of looks like they're phoning it in maybe, or not really trying, or like not putting out the best results.
It's funny, we're like dancing around the point. I feel like I know what you're thinking or which team you're thinking, but I won't say it. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting perspective, because like you said, if you're a player and someone says 400,000 to come play for me, you're not going to say no.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I can keep talking about this too. I mean, as an amateur player, it was an extremely exciting prospect to be like, I can put together a team with other players that I play with in solo queue or in Challenger Series. And if we are good enough, and if we're better than the last place LCS team, and we qualify for that tournament and we beat them, we're going to be in LCS. That's an extremely exciting prospect as a tier 2 player, or even just a solo queue player. There's like that dream of, wow, if I'm good enough, maybe I can scrap for that slot. And then there would be that chance twice every year in relegations.
So going into next year, the LCS or LoL Esports, I guess, announced a lot of changes to NA, where we're now going to see 6 franchise teams, plus the addition of a Latin American team, and then one tier 2 team will be able to promote to the LCS as a promotion relegation spot. So what are your thoughts on these changes, and do you feel like it's going to kind of give League some of the magic it had back in the day?
I don't really think it will like restore the magic that existed back in the day. I think that's like a very we're never gonna get it back,
Yeah.
Like there was that amazing time where League was at its peak and everyone was into League, and there wasn't really any other games out too. It was a really big thing.
Yeah.
And but I think it will be good to kind of freshen things up. I think the Latin American players, I think their strongest players are better probably than a lot of fans are probably aware of. I play with these guys all day long in solo queue. Some of them are really not bad. There's Jose DoTA is probably the biggest example of someone who played in LCS for a bit. He's actually quite good.
Yeah.
They actually got knocked out pretty early in playoffs in their regional league. So that shows that the talent pool there is pretty solid.
It exists for sure.
Yeah. The guest slot team, I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, I feel like it's gonna maybe be DSG because of the branding, but I don't think they've announced any framework for it, so could be anyone honestly. But
What do you think it will take to try to get that magic back?
I don't know if LCS will reach those peaks ever again. If I'm speaking pretty candidly, I think the interest level and I think the age group too is really important when we talk about this. I think gradually, as we've gotten older, the LCS age group has gotten older, and there's not really too much new fresh blood coming in. I think there's some teenagers who,
take an interest.
yeah, take an interest and get into league. I think that was, but that was kind of like the predominant demographic back then.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, kids like me. I'm 17 playing an LCS. People who are into LCS are also like kids like me, 17, 18. You know, they have a lot of free time. We play a lot of league. I don't think you can recapture that in any way, shape, or form, honestly speaking, without some great cultural shift within the US as a whole, which I mean, I don't think Riot Games is capable of doing that.
Yeah.
I don't think League is capable of doing that. I don't think LCS is capable of doing that. But you know, I think everyone's trying to do the best that they can do. I think LCS is trying to put the best product they can forward. And yeah, I mean, this changes part of it. I know the other leagues are not really too stoked about this because their leagues are kind of being cannibalized by LCS.
Yeah, they had a few words to say, some not so nice words to say. So
yeah, I mean, honestly, not sure how it'll pan out, but they're like switching stuff up. You know, they're trying, and I hope it works out. I hope it's interesting for the players. I hope it gives more chances for those tier 2 players who want to promote. I hope it's interesting as me who like co-streams LCS all the time. But yeah, just optimistic.
This is like related / unrelated. Do you have any thoughts on Fearless Draft, and do you think it'll be good for the fans? Because I mean, LS, who's a content creator for FlyQuest, has said that the most important thing for Riot or their priority should be the fan experience. So do you think Fearless is going to be a better experience for fans?
I think Fearless Draft would be a step in the right direction. I mean, man, League is just such a complex game at this point. It can be really difficult to understand as a more casual fan, I think, why pros do the things they do. Why are they always picking Trish? Why are they always picking Corki? You know, why is every game like a snooze fest? I think Fearless Draft will help that a bit. I mean, honestly, I wish the game was more exciting in general to watch for fans. I do feel like games can be kind of slow a lot of the time. I feel like it can be really high level, like very small nitty gritty advantages a lot of the time. You know, I feel like the pacing of pro play sometimes is like nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Ah, he made a mistake. Let's laugh at him. And I feel like that's not really
fun.
Yeah, it's not really fun, and it's not really healthy for the fans who just want to be entertained. It's not healthy for the pros who, you know, are actually really fucking good at what they do, but it doesn't really appear that way the way the game is. You know, when you watch someone play League, you only see the mistakes, really.
There's not much like skill expression in current meta, would you say?
I mean, kind of there is. It's over like the smallest advantages, and from those tiniest of advantages, like you just kind of choke them out forever. I feel like is the way I view it. But that's not something that's very visible.
So would you say like then like the good players are the ones who can find those like small advantages?
Yeah, I mean, Chovy is not like fucking locking in Zed with Flash Ignite and like dubstep all inning. He locks in
Corki.
Yeah, he'll lock in Corki, or he'll lock in Draven into Corki and just like eke out a small advantage, then a bigger advantage, then a bigger advantage, and you're like, okay, well, how is this guy like 50 CS ahead? And you know, that's like kind of the optimal way I feel like the game is played right now. I don't know. Personally, I don't think that's super exciting.
Yeah, most definitely not. But
and he's like an insane player, right? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we just went on a crazy tangent.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely. I mean, we were talking about FlyQuest and we started talking about franchising. So last bit on this side, I guess, is your girlfriend Cyan. So you guys met when you were on FlyQuest, and Crumbs once upon a time said that women are the down, or not women, but girlfriends specifically are the downfall of the LCS. Do you agree with that statement?
No, that's a pretty misogynistic comment to make. But no, I think Cyan was good for my mental health. You know, she was there as a pillar of support. when I was playing, when I was going through tough times, things like that. She was understanding of when I had to prioritize playing professionally and playing LCS, and the time commitment and mental commitment that took. So I was appreciative of that, and those were boundaries that we established when we first got together. So for me personally, I felt like that didn't affect me negatively. Um, it can definitely affect you if you are inexperienced, though. I feel like um, it just depends on the person. Like sometimes, yeah, I've had teammates who like mental boomed because they fought with their girlfriend at the time or something like that. But
It's just life, I guess.
yeah, I mean, it's just life. Like it's just like young dudes, 18, 19, 20, maybe their first girlfriend because all they did was play League all day long. It is what it is.
So you mentioned how you guys were very communicative of like boundaries and I guess sacrifices. So how did you manage to balance playing League professionally and also having a girlfriend? What are like some of the changes or sacrifices you had to make?
I mean, I just kind of played League all the time. Honestly speaking, I would just play League all day long. Like I just tried to keep my schedule as close to how it would be normally. If I had spare time, I would just spend it with her. And yeah, that was my life.
And now that you're a streamer, how has like that dynamic changed? I mean, you obviously have like a lot more free time, but do you feel like a girlfriend is something most players can manage, or was like you feel like you specifically were able to manage it as opposed to others? Because you mentioned other like your other teammates mental boomed, or some of them did. So
I mean, I think it's hard to manage. If I was giving advice to a younger player who's like, hey, I want to get a girlfriend, and it's like my first year playing LCS and I'm like 18, 19, I would probably tell him like, don't do it, just focus on playing for now, if I'm being honest, because it can be challenging to balance that, not even for me, but for uh the pronoun changes are crazy, not even for the dude but for the girlfriend. It can be difficult to deal with that, like not spending as much time together, things like that. Yeah.
So I guess like the last question on relationships then, do you believe in the existence of a wife buff? Because Doinby won Worlds with a wife, and there's like several players who won, like JayJ has a wife. I think they were dating back then when he won World. So do you believe in the existence of a wife buff in League of Legends?
I think if the relationship is harmonious, it can serve to benefit your performance as a professional player.
Now are we talking about your time, or I guess part 2 of you being on CLG, and as evidenced by these pictures, you started off kind of like excited, happy, jovial, and then by the end of your career on CLG, you look like you want to cry. Like I think I can see tears forming. So talk to me about your experience going back to CLG and like what that experience was, because it was also during COVID. So how was that like?
Yeah, that was pretty rough. Looking back on it, probably the worst 2 years of my career. Definitely not good in terms of performance or results, and definitely not enjoyable in terms of my own personal satisfaction. Yeah, it just sucked. The team was not great. I didn't get along with management. Yeah.
So do you feel like that experience led you to retire, or was it like you were already thinking about potential retirement?
I think I was pretty unhappy by the end. And honestly speaking, as a pro, you're only as good as your most recent year, pretty much. Like if you were a truly excellent player, people will give you the benefit of the doubt beyond like, maybe he just had a bad year, a bad split. But I mean, that was like 2 pretty rough years back to back. It's not like teams were lining up to sign me to great contracts or anything like that. And that was also towards when the VC money was drying up as well. So teams were already starting to scale back at that point. And I was extremely unhappy in terms of the way things were going and how I felt on a day-to-day basis towards the end of that year. So I felt like I would just take a break because I had been playing for such a long time without taking an extended break. I think I played in my first tournament when I was like 14. And I think at the end of that second year, I was like 24 or 5.
About a decade of playing.
Yeah, so it was kind of like 10 years of just really rigorous playing League, like 10 hours a day, every single day. And I was like, you know what? I'll just like take a break. It's okay. And if I get back to it, I'll get back to it. If not, I'll see what else is out there for me. Was my perspective.
Yeah. So is there any like amount of like regrets towards the end of your career? Because like you mentioned, in your opinion, players are only as good as their last split, or most of them at least. So is there ever any thoughts like I still have something left to give on an LCS stage?
So after that really sad year, I was like pretty remotivated to try again. I wanted to give it like, like my last shot. I like watched Michael Jordan's Last Dance, and
Oh yeah, that one was a good one.
I was like playing Champions Queue. I was like playing with homies, and we were scrimming against DRX before they went on stage and won World Finals, and we were like going blow for blow with them. I was like, yeah, I still got it, that sort of deal. And I was so hungry, man. I was like begging teams, like, please give me a chance. Like, please let me show you what I got. And I just never got a chance. And I guess that left me feeling pretty jaded and demotivated. And then I feel like my motivation kind of faded again. And then I became kind of pessimistic again. And I was like, you know what? I'll just try streaming. I'll see how it goes. And if streaming doesn't work out, then I will find something else to do with my life. And that was like a year and a half ago. And I did have an LCS offer earlier this year, actually. But streaming has just been more enjoyable than I thought it would be. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
So now that we're in 2024 and the LCS is going to go through some changes, do you still have any amount of interest in playing pro, or are you like completely, I just want to focus on streaming?
I think I'm at the mindset now where, so when I was at like my peak playing pro, I told myself if I ever felt like I was not serious or could not actualize my dream, and my dream was to win worlds, or at the very least make a really strong run, be like an internationally renowned player. If I ever felt like I can't see that for myself anymore, I can't see that level of commitment, I can't see myself reaching that level, then I'm just not gonna try it, because I don't want to half-ass it. I don't want to be someone that's just in it for the paycheck without giving it their all. And after like getting a taste of the easy life, which is like streaming, not taking the game as seriously, I just don't have the same hunger as I did when I was 18, 19, when I was like so obsessed about the game and nothing in my life mattered besides playing League of Legends for 12 hours every day. I'm not kidding. I seriously didn't care about anything else. I don't think I had any friends. I'd see my family every now and then. I was just so devoted and committed solely to the game. And I just don't know if I can give that same level of obsession towards it. Like, I don't know if I still really love to play League of Legends.
Yeah,
I still enjoy it.
You still stream like 10 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, people still ask me, like, do you even enjoy playing this game anymore? And honestly, yeah, I do. Like, I like to play League. It's still really fun. It's like an addicting game. Just, really.
Once you get going, you can't stop, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if I love it to that extent where, in order to reach that level that I reached at playing pro, I was, like, playing every waking hour of the day. I was watching every game of LCK. I would try and watch every game of LCS and LEC. And then I would like try and watch LPL on top of that. And then I would try and watch the first person VODs. Like, I was just so obsessed with it at the time. And, that was what resulted in my peak as a player. And I just don't think I can put in that same level of care and effort. So it wouldn't do justice to me or like my potential teammates or anything like that if I was playing and I didn't put in that level of effort.
Yeah, it's perfectly understandable. So for the sake of time, if we can go to the next slide. We're now going to talk about your streaming career very briefly. So we mentioned just literally a minute ago, you stream like 10 hours a day. So why do you stream so much, and what makes it, I guess, I'm assuming it's enjoyable. So what makes it so enjoyable for you?
Why do I stream so much? I stream a lot because I want to grow my stream, and I know what it's like to be in the situation where I'm like, I want to play on a team and I can't. So I don't want to ever be in that position again where I'm like caught with my pants down and I'm like, oh, I'm not like doing something productive. I'm not making money. I'm not progressing or advancing. Like, I think streaming took on a decent amount of momentum for me. And I think part of what gives it the momentum is just being very consistent, being on at hours when no one else is. So that's why I stream later into the night.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I try and be very consistent and put in hours.
Yeah, and I mean, you co-stream as well, and you also play a ton of solo queue. Do you have a preferred style of content that you do?
I like to just chill and co-stream and watch LCS. Solo queue can be fun sometimes. Sometimes it can be tilting.
Sometimes not so fun, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one disadvantage of streaming is I can't just like get up and just go take a break for like 30 minutes if I'm feeling really frustrated. It's kind of like, you got to keep going sort of thing. I mean, there's pros and cons to both lives. There's pros and cons to the life of a professional and as a streamer, but can't complain. It's going pretty well.
Yeah, I would agree. Your stream is, I think, one of like the more popular ones in NA, so I would agree that it goes pretty well. If we can go to the conclusion now in that case. So what are your thoughts on the state of League of Legends in current moment? Because I feel like for a couple years, many players grew jaded with like the decisions we're making around balance, the LCS decisions. But I mean, I'm a coper. I'm an optimist. I love League of Legends. So any positive sign I'll hold on to. But what do you think about the state of pro play? And what do you think about the state of the game itself?
I think as a game, League is extremely established within the US. I think there's so many players that play super consistently, like normals, ARAMs, more casual game modes, arena, TFT, all these sorts of things like orbit the League of Legends universe. And there's still like a really healthy ranked player base, I think. I think professional play, there's definitely not as much interest as there was before, even if we look objectively at international results. Like the NA teams have done fairly well recently. I mean, NRG scored 2-0 against G2. That was pretty recent. That was at Worlds last year, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Team Liquid did fine at MSI. They did
Mhm.
fine at the Saudi Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Results wise, like NA is doing better than before, where it was like, haha, every team is getting blown out of groups. 0% chance sort of deal. But I feel like the interest is not really there as much anymore, unfortunately. I don't know what you can do to fix that, if I'm being honest. I try and make the games exciting when I co-stream and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hard nut to crack. I think everyone wants it to go back to the glory days where it's like, even if it's 2 feeder teams, it's still drawing like hundreds of thousands on the main channel for LCS. That was back in like, I don't know, 2016, 17,
Yeah.
I'd say, where it was pulling that kind of numbers. I don't know if it'll ever get back to those days, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just sort of a wait and see what happens kind of guy, if I'm being honest. So
I mean, that's fair. Yeah.
they're doing this merger. Just wait and see what happens. Yeah.
That's pretty much all I have for you. So thank you so much for joining me today, Pobelter. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I guess I'll see you guys next time.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.